Can Satan actually trick people into believing that God doesn't exist? Satan doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. That's reality. If you believe they do, you've been brainwashed. As a child, I was brainwashed to believe Satan and God existed and that Satan could trick or fool us into not believing in God and an afterlife. Gave me a great deal of fear for 47 years. Child abuse. His most impressive achievements are in tricking believers into turning their back on God and His message, in the name of God no less. The seemingly simple act of going to church is a major group exercise in giving God the middle finger. How so? Jesus came to set us free from religion. The Church of Scripture is not a religious building, where religious people go, to be taught by a ruling religious clergy class, under the oversight of a religious institution. Google image search. Religion vs. the Gospel. Genesis 3:15, Matthew 23 ESPV 15, John 8:44, Galatians 3, Revelation 18. When you invoke magic, anything is possible. Satan is a magical being. He can do anything you decide he can do, like Superman can. Same with God. He can do anything. Except kill Satan, apparently. When you start thinking supernatural beings are controlling your thoughts, you're headed for the funny farm. I wouldn't go there, if I were you. Oh, that way madness lies, let me shun that. No more of that. Lucifer is always busy doing that very thing, and has been successful at that. See the evil he has been responsible for. For the sake of the question, we'll go ahead and assume that God and Satan exist. The answer would be no, unless God allows it. Now the question becomes, why would a God that supposedly loves us and wants a relationship with us allow it? You might throw out the old free will argument, but that's a cop-out for a couple of reasons. 1. God could, and if he really gave a shit would, stop it from happening. And 2. You probably also say things like God has a plan, and well, free will can't exist if God has a plan. What good is a plan if some asshole, even Satan, can just change the plan at will? Yes. He will even try to convince you that he, Satan, doesn't exist. He will try to convince hell doesn't exist. His greatest weapon is deception. Because what you don't know will hurt you, even kill you. God is sure doing a piss-poor job of showing he exists. Especially for an omnipotent and omniscient being. Why does he always let Satan win? Where do you think Charles Darwin got the idea of evolution? Why are there liberal, narcissistic, stoic and atheists people? Ideas seeded by Satan to disprove God existed. Q. Can Satan actually trick people into believing that God doesn't exist? No. Satan is imaginary, as is God. All claims of the supernatural are fraud or delusion. There are no exceptions. Satan's trick is to convince people that neither he nor God actually exist. I don't believe in Satan or God. However, I've seen some people here on earth who are quite Satanical. No. One imaginary entity cannot make people think another imaginary entity doesn't exist. No, Satan did not cause atheism. Any preachers who would even suggest such nonsense is very poorly educated or blatantly lying. Neither one of them exist. Their existence is a human creation. Only a human being acknowledges that they exist. Nothing else even knows that they exist. Nobody can stop people to believing in one God, Ek Ankur, creator of everything, and he even stay connected with everybody as their inner voice. Folded hands, folded hands. Who doesn't have to? People already tell themselves God doesn't exist. Yes, and he can also deceive you to believe he doesn't exist. Delusion can trick you into believing that a God exists, or that Satan exists. Not if Satan doesn't exist. Imaginary beings can't trick people into believing anything. But people have been tricked into believing that Thor exists. Who do you think tricked them into believing that? I would say that they were tricked by other people. And people have been tricked into believing that Zeus exists. Who do you think tricked them into believing that? I would say that they were tricked by other people. And people have been tricked into believing that Vishnu exists. Who do you think tricked them into believing that? I would say that they were tricked by other people. And people have been tricked into believing that Ahura Mazda exists. Who do you think tricked them into believing that? I would say that they were tricked by other people. And people have been tricked into believing that Jehovah exists. Who do you think tricked them into believing that? I would say that they were tricked by other people. Sure seems like the most tricking is being done by other people. I mean, he could, but he'd much rather be God. No, the biggest thing is Satan tricked us into believing he does not exist. Can myth? So you're asking if one mythical entity can trick people into believing that another doesn't exist? That's a really neat trick, but I would have to say no, as neither Satan nor God exist beyond the mental fantasies of the religiously indoctrinated. If I were in a facetious or humorous mood, I could say that the equally mythical mermaids go out of their way to prevent Satan from succeeding in his mission, as mermaids, generally, don't like Satan, and you would have no way of saying I was wrong in saying so, for if you believe in a devil, or a god, or ghosts, or angels, or demons, you might as well add mermaids to the list, as there is equal proof available for any of them, mainly, none at all. Personally, I do regret that mermaids are mythical, as they don't generally condemn people to an eternity of punishments if you don't believe in them, unlike the behaviors of most gods, so in that way they are far better behaved than the deity or deities are.